and welcome to a step-by-step guide on how I do a tarot reading. In this example, I'll be reading for myself. First, I start by tidying up my desk. I do most of my readings here, so I need to get all of my uni stuff out of the way to give myself plenty of clear space. Then I pick a deck to use for my reading. I usually have a deck or three out that I've been using lately, so more often than not I will select one of those. If you'd like to know more about the specifics of how I choose a deck for a reading, I will link another video where I cover that in the cards above. Today I've gone with the Gaian Tarot. This is a beautiful deck that I've had for a while, but I haven't really used much before, so I'm making an effort to get to know it at the moment. Now that my deck is selected, I take a moment to just feel the cards, breathe, quiet my mind, and also to get specific about the question or topic of my reading. I find personally that the clearer I am on the question, the clearer the answers are, so this is an important moment for me. To me, a reading often feels like a conversation with my deck, so touching the cards, shuffling them a bit, it sort of feels like the handshake and small talk. I get comfy with the cards and warm them up a bit before we get stuck in. Depending on my relationship with a deck, how well I know it, the significance of my question, this can take a few seconds or a few minutes, whatever feels right. Next, I decide on how I'm going to structure the reading. A lot of the time I will make my own spread on the fly, but today I decided to select a spread. Once I'm clear on my question and the spread I want to use, I get shuffling. So right now while I'm shuffling, I'm asking for a card for the position number 1 in the spread, which is a card that represents the present energies of the situation of my question. And basically I shuffle until a card offers itself in answer. So either a card that jumps out of the deck or one that sticks up and grabs my attention. After a bit of shuffling, the Child of Water pops out. So I take a moment to recognize any immediate intuitive hits that come up for me, but I don't get too deep just yet. Then I repeat for the second position, which is helpful actions. So while I'm shuffling, I'm concentrating on my overall topic of the reading and asking for a card to help me get clear on some positive, actionable steps I can take right now. For this, the 5 of Earth stuck out and caught my eye. Again, I take a moment to just look at the card. Then we move on to position 3, which is what to avoid in the situation I'm asking about. The what not to do, basically. And this time it was strength that popped out. Then finally, position 4, the most likely outcome of my situation. And here 2 cards popped out, the 7 of Fire and the Elder of Water. There's a few different ways that I handle more than one card popping out for a position, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, this next part I don't always do, but as this is a fairly important reading for me, I decided it would be helpful to write down my thoughts and interpretations. Usually I start by just taking notes, dot points, of my first impressions, anything that comes to mind about the traditional meanings and what I see in the imagery. I do read each card individually to the position that it's in, but I also try to take note of any patterns that I see or any sort of direct relationship any of the cards have with each other that might influence the meaning of each card. Because this is a deck I'm still not super familiar with, I then decided to have a bit of a read of the meanings provided in the guidebook. This allows me to add to what I've already intuited for myself and also enables me to get to know the deck a little bit better and the intentions of the creator. So it sort of serves 2 purposes here. I added 1 or 2 dot points based on the book, but I wrote it in a different color ink so I could see what my interpretations were and what was an addition from the book. After I've taken some notes and jotted down my interpretations and intuitive hits, I then wrote out my question and used my dot points to clearly answer my question and the spread positions. So for instance, the first card represented the now, the current energies, and some of my dot points were innocence, naivety, fantasy. So now I use those ideas to clearly answer the question, which ended up being something like, I'm still at the beginning of this journey and can be prone to dreaming and fantasy, but there's also a lot of excitement and hopefulness. Now, as for the fourth position where we had those 2 cards pop out, there's a few ways to deal with this. Sometimes it feels appropriate to read the cards together, sort of like 1 + 1 = 2. Other times it feels more like there's 2 different answers that are just as likely, and it's up to me to take action towards the one that I want. In this case though, it felt to me like one card represented the more immediate outcome, and the second represented the outcome a little further down the line. So rather than representing 2 different answers, these cards sort of represented 2 different points in time. If in this situation I had like 5 cards pop out, I probably wouldn't read all those. Instead, I would keep shuffling, put all those cards back in, keep shuffling, and ask for a specific answer, for a clear answer. Often a bunch of cards will pop out when I'm not being super specific and clear in my intention and my thoughts, so it's a good reminder for me to get more focused on my reading and my intentions. But when 2 cards pop out, sometimes even 3 cards, and it feels right, I do trust that all of those cards belong in that position and are part of my answer to my question. So after I'd finished this process of interpretation of my reading, I decided to draw myself an oracle card. The deck I chose was the Antiquity of Magic Oracle by Gillian C. Wilde. Drawing an oracle card at the end of the reading just sort of wraps up everything and gives me a focus or an affirmation to take with me and to remind me of the important parts of my reading. One of the key words for the grape card from this deck is abundance. So this was like a really motivating little card. And for that reason, I've decided to keep it out on my desk where I can see it every day, be reminded of those important takeaways from my reading, and also to keep me focused and directed. It just sort of captures the energy that I need to take away from the reading, and having that singular card out just helps keep it fresh in my mind without having to keep the whole reading out on my table. And then the very last thing that I do is to shuffle my deck, shuffle the deck that I used, sort of take a moment to thank it for its service for helping me. This is a moment of gratitude, but also just of clearing, of sort of signaling that this is the end of the reading and putting the deck away until I need it next. So that's sort of a simplified step-by-step of how I tend to do a reading when I'm reading for myself. Sometimes when a reading is about like a smaller, less significant topic, I don't take as much time with it. I might not write down my messages, for example. So I'm pretty flexible with what I do and how I do it, but this is a pretty typical reading structure for me. A big thank you to my patrons, especially Tracy Timmerman, Laurie, Lynette Brown, and the Hales K for your support. And thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. I'd love to hear in the comments below how you go about the process of doing a reading, and I will talk to you again soon. So much love. Bye.